when I focused on harnessing my own strengths and putting myself in positions and scenarios in which those strengths would be competitive advantages, I succeeded better, I succeeded faster, and I had succeeded with a level of cognitive ease. My environments play a very big part in how I perceive the world and how productive I can be and how peaceful I can be.
Understanding who we are is one thing. Explaining that to everyone else is another thing. Whether you want more innovation more easily, you're feeling burnt out or overwhelmed, or you simply know that something isn't quite the way you know it can be, you are not alone. I hear the same from leaders every day. On Uncommon Leadership, we explore aligning personal fulfillment with business success, creating authentic teams, and cultivating the resilience, adaptability, and ease necessary to move beyond simply surviving today's challenges into thriving. I'm Michael Hunter with Uncommon Teams, and today we'll uncover fresh insights into what it means to lead today. Joining me is Rita Ramakrishnan. Rita is an executive coach focusing on neurodivergent leaders in the workplace. She's also completing her master's at the University of Pennsylvania with a research focus on neurodivergent success factors and coaching modalities. That sounds like fun.
It's a blast.
Rita takes a strengths-based approach to her coaching, partnering with her clients to identify the unique neurodivergent strengths and gifts so they can harness them as competitive advantages while addressing their specific challenges. Welcome, Rita.
Thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
I have been looking forward to this all month. When did you first recognize that integrating your whole self and bringing that into everything that you do might be a valuable approach?
I think there's something about the term ease that feels right here. I think when you're neurodivergent, one of the ways in which you get through life is by masking and mirroring. So you take a look at the observed behaviors around you and you just pull from that and you create a mental model and a physical model, and that's the character you play. In terms of your ways of working, you see the ways in which everyone else is working and you say, okay, I need to fit into that box too. And that can get you to very great levels of success. That can move you up the corporate ladder and get you into very high levels of leadership. But it takes a toll. It takes a huge mental toll and it takes a huge physical toll. And by fitting yourself into that box, you're not necessarily leveraging the strengths that your gifts are giving you as a neurodivergent individual. So as a neurodivergent individual, there are absolutely challenges that come with your neurodivergence, and no two neurodivergent people are identical. So their challenges might look a little bit different, but everything is in balance. You have unique gifts and strengths that come with your neurodivergence as well. And so what I found personally was when I focused on harnessing my own strengths and putting myself in positions and scenarios in which those strengths would be competitive advantages, I succeeded better, I succeeded faster, and I had succeeded with a level of cognitive ease. And those strengths can be utilized to offset some of those challenges as well. I think so much of the language that we use when we're thinking about neurodivergence in the workplace is focused on deficit language. So this is just a series of challenges and we need to accommodate or tolerate it. But the real juice is when you sort of recognize it, not from a deficit perspective, but from a strengths-based approach. And you say, what are the unique strengths that are associated with this? And how can this be a competitive advantage for me and for the organizations that I support? And that's the work I do with my clients.
100%. I always say that whoever you are, the world is clamoring to have you in their life. And this is true at work just as much as anywhere else. The most effective teams I've worked with or been a part of are those who did exactly what you say. They looked at what are the strengths that each person brings and how can we best match this up against the work we have to do, regardless of what titles or roles or other rules or guidelines said that we should do.
Absolutely.
What was it that first time where you said, maybe I should stop trying to be who I'm not and take this thing that I think might be a strength and really focus on that. What helped you get to that point?
So I think sometimes these things happen a little bit by accident, right? I encourage my clients to do sort of an energy mapping exercise where they track themselves over a couple of weeks and they think about where they've been successful over those couple of weeks and how that felt. Did they feel energized? Did they feel depleted? And what that looks like when they're feeling depleted. What are the tasks? What are the skills that they're utilizing? What about it is driving towards that depletion? But I think for most of us, it starts by accident. We have some great days and we think about those great days and we say, like, what was different about this day? And you start to acknowledge that you are unique. You have things, you have traits and qualities and strengths that other people, the vast majority of other people, may not have, and certainly may not have the same flavor of as you. And there's just a joy that comes from when you get to do things in the way that you naturally do things, the way your brain is wired to do things, and those things work out great, that's a natural joy. That's a natural high that comes to you. And so the first few times that might happen where you actually recognize it's happening, that might be by accident. But once you intentionally start to carve out that time where you're reflecting and you're seeing that, this is what I really encourage clients to do is let's focus on those moments and let's identify the special sauce that drove towards those moments. What are the specific characteristics of those moments and how do we replicate those? And what is happening when you're feeling completely depleted at the end of the day or you walk off of a call and it's, you're just you're wiped. Let's think about the messages that your body is telling you and let's dissect that and figure out how we might utilize what we're learning from the great moments in those moments to change those or to couch some of your challenges so that you're not feeling quite as depleted from it. But it always starts from a place of, oh, wow, that felt great.
Is this the accidental path that you took where you started doing this mapping yourself sort of accidentally, starting to notice some trends and
Yeah.
putting things together?
Yeah. I think I, like many people around the world today, got diagnosed later in life. So I got diagnosed with ADHD when I was in university. And there's this exercise you go through where you look at your past and you say, oh, holy cannoli, all of this makes sense. And I got diagnosed as being on the autism spectrum much later, actually just a few years ago. But again, you go through this process of saying, oh, holy cannoli, this helps me make sense. Like all of these puzzle pieces are now clicking and I understand myself a little bit better. And knowing yourself and going through that act of making sense of the world around you through that lens of this is part of my identity, this is part of who I am, allows you to sort of isolate on those moments. It kind of forces you into that reflective stage. And a lot of people choose to ignore it, and that's okay if that's what they want. But by engaging productively in self reflection at these moments, a lot of folks have this opportunity to find those strengths and find those moments of joy. And so that's sort of the pathway that got me there is just, starting from an initial place of diagnosis and holy cannoli, let me look at my past, to then pausing and saying, well, now let me look at my future. Like, what has my past taught me? And what is this diagnosis teaching me that I can take so I can live a happier and more fulfilling life? What can be different for me now that I didn't necessarily have access to or even think about until this point?
What are some things that it has given you access to as you have gained this broader, deeper, more clear understanding of who you are?
Yeah. So one of the things I will say is it comes with both my ADHD and being on the spectrum, but my environments play a very big part in how I perceive the world and how productive I can be and how peaceful I can be. Like, put me in a cubicle with a bunch of fluorescent lights, and I'm going to start to feel claustrophobic. Too much noise, and I'm just not going to get there. Too little noise, and my brain is probably going to go whirring in a different direction. And so it allows you to even just, for me, it allows me to look around at myself and say, what are the environments in which I am my best self? And how do I take those elements and replicate it in those other environments? How do I choose my pathway through this world? Or how do I advocate for myself in which that sensory processing element is optimized for cognitive ease? So that's one way. Second way is recognizing that some of my strengths are pattern recognition. My aperture is bigger and wider. I'm always taking in more facts. I'm connecting things disparately that seem disparate, but actually have a connection point within them. And so that pattern recognition, And those connectivity points sometimes take a little bit of brainstorming and time. And so this means that I can ask for open free flow discussions in terms of meetings, or I can ask someone to be a sounding board. So we're actually talking it out, because talking it out is something that's really helpful for me. But even just advocating for, hey, let's take a look at materials in advance if that's possible, if we have to make a decision or think through things, and let's actually talk it out, even if it's just 10 minutes discussion. Let's talk it out in the meeting. That's going to help me bring my best self, my most creative and thoughtful self, into this meeting so that we can partner together and come up with the best outcomes. So again, this process of self-discovery is really just optimizing for when are you at your best? What are the conditions you need to be at like that best, like highest and best version of yourself? So you can bring that to the environments that you're in and drive extraordinary value. It's basically turning your potential into true performance.
Understanding who we are is one thing. Explaining that to everyone else is another thing. And then inciting that conversation of, I know what I need, you know what you need, the other 5 people on our team know what they need. Now we mash this all together and come up with some sort of working agreements that let us all get enough of what we need to work together well enough that we're worth working together instead of disbanding and trying to find other people who work better. How did you first navigate your way through those conversations? And then how do you help your clients now navigate that through? Because that can be really fraught.
Yeah, I think it brings up this sort of notion of explicit and implicit agreements. There's like an implicit agreement that when you join a new organization, onboarding, particularly at the leadership level, is rarely well thought out and rarely good. So you're sitting here and you're trying to decode the workplace. You're trying to decode the signals of this is the way in which you work, and therefore I must fit into that. Now, instead of accepting this as an implicit agreement and an implicit assumption that people within the organization are making that you're going to fold in, engaging and putting it into explicit context is something that's not just going to help you, but going to help everyone else. Hey guys, I just observed this is something that you guys do in meetings. Is this something that you all agreed to? Is this something that's working for everybody? Because I'm not going to lie, there are aspects of this that I would appreciate if we could revisit, because it would enable me to work a little bit better. Are you guys open to that conversation? And it allows a point in time where everyone can advocate for their needs and co-create environments that are good for the totality. And things that work for neurodivergent leaders and neurodivergent brains oftentimes work for a lot more people than that. But they have the incentive and and the temerity to have that conversation, right? So it's literally just saying, I want us all to work better together. And I think it behooves us to just pause for 1 minute and reflect on our ways of working. It's going to take 10 minutes, it's going to take 20 minutes, but let's just talk about things that are working and aren't working for us and what we might want to change. We're going to open that discussion up to everybody. And then we can experiment. Sometimes we're going to try something and it's just not going to work, but we'll try it a few times. We'll see if it works. If it doesn't, we'll learn from it. We can explore what else might work instead of it. And so you get to a place where not only is the team co-creating their ways of working, which means they're going to be more engaged and doing their best work, but you're sort of problem solving this thing as a team, and that's going to bring you greater cohesion and collaboration as well.
Yes, and in this approach, this seems like it can work well in many different environments because we're starting small with
Yeah.
which can be a lot less scary than trying to solve everything all at once. And we're bringing it up as this is something I've noticed. Tell me if I'm completely off the wall and it's not bothering any of the rest of you. And even if it's not bothering the rest of you, it would really help me if we could make this one change.
Yeah. It's like a little bit of advocacy goes a long way. A small request can go a long way. And saying, hey, I have some ideas and suggestions. Could we give it a go? Now, you can do it within the context of disclosure. So, hey, guys, like, I am neurodivergent. I have these challenges, and I'd love to co create solutions and adjust ways of working. It might not just be for me. Some of you guys might like it better as well, but can we have that conversation? That is one possible way to do it. A lot of workplaces, folks within them don't feel safe disclosing, and that's okay too. You can just bring it up as this is one of the ways of working that I've observed. This is the challenge for me right now with this way of working. this one change might enable me to be more effective and contribute better to this group. Anyone have any objections to giving this a go for a bit? How might we make something like this work?
For people who are not yet comfortable with even that tiny bit of self-advocacy, how do you help coach them through being willing to stand up for themselves that way?
Yeah, that can take some time. It can take some time, particularly in unsafe workplaces or when there's a lot of strife or challenge or politics. It might make the person feel a little bit uncomfortable. Now, I primarily work with leaders, so I say start small, start within the context of your own team, right? Your own directs. Position things and see how they work within the context of your team. And if you start to see some improvements, then talk about those improvements. Talk about, hey, this is a data point. We've been doing these things on my team and it's been working. I'm curious if the broader team would be open to experimenting with this as well. Well, now you have a proof point. And they rarely will have a reason to say no when you have proof points that say, actually, this is going to be more effective. Bringing other data, right? When we're talking about meetings and ways of working, there are giants like Amazon or other organizations like Square that have codified the ways of working that are most effective for them, the data that they've gleaned in terms of what it meant for them when they switched to these ways of working and how much better they work together. Those are case studies that you can bring. So, data is always your friend when you're trying for self advocacy. Something about, hey, this would help me sometimes is really challenging for folks to vocalize. But hey, this is something that could actually help all of us is a lot easier for folks, for my clients at least, to be able to put out into the universe and say, hey, I think this can make us all a little bit better. Are we willing to try it? And so, not necessarily making it about you is one way to go about it. And then, oftentimes, it's just building up that courage. So, finding the small changes that you can make yourself and then saying, hey, these are some changes I made to my ways of working. Would you be open to trying them as well? Can we like creating a spirit of experimentation within your peer set and saying, hey, I think we can start to optimize our ways of working. Like we're in growth mode. We should always be looking to do things better and more effectively. And here are some suggestions that I have. Like, what do you guys think? Inviting perspectives. Don't just say, this is what I know will work. This is something that I think might work, but what do you think would work? This is a problem I'm observing. What are your suggestions to do it as well? And allow people to suggest their own ideas and co-create that solution so it's owned by everyone.
One way to summarize all of that is to say that suggest the changes in a way that you feel powerful. If you're the leader, then you automatically have some presumed power to talk about, to shift how the team works, or at least to invite those conversations. When we're not the leader, we also have that power to talk with people one-on-one. If we've been on the team a while, maybe there's someone that we're kind of friends with, that we can start that conversation. And even if there's not, we can still go one-on-one and say, hey, I've noticed in the meetings that we tend to do this thing. For me, it would help a little bit if we did this other thing. How would that land for you? And do this sort of standard power, influence without power kind of approach of get a lot of people on your side before you go into the meeting, suggesting.
That's an option. That's absolutely an option. And I would say that's one way of looking at or summarizing what I just said is looking at it through the lens of power versus influence. The other way of looking at it is self versus others. If you're uncomfortable advocating for yourself, don't make it about yourself, make it about everyone. Hey, this is something that I think could benefit everyone. Here's some data, or here's how I think it will address some of these challenges. What do you guys think? To make it about yourself, make it about a broader group of people and doing a greater good.
That's a great frame, and another way to start those one-on-one conversations of going to each person on the team. I noticed we do this thing in the meeting. How's that working for you? And even if they're not comfortable saying it doesn't work for me, from their approach or from their answer, you can get a pretty good idea. Because if they say, oh, it works great, that's going to be different from, oh, it's fine, or it works great, which probably means it's not working so great for them.
As a neurodivergent person, I think it's really hard to get to a place of leadership or a place of success without having courage. You have to have courage. And so there's an element to this, which is you are brave and you are courageous and you are hardworking. You are all of these great things. Let's put those qualities to work right now.
And if you want to have the success and the impact that you want to have, then you're going to have to get comfortable with some of this discomfort and working through it. Or you're just going to stay where you are and maybe little incremental changes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what we're circling around talking about here is building cultures where people feel safe and empowered to bring their unique talents into everything that they do. If there's one place for someone to start to understand what their unique talents are, and then just bring that into conversation with their teams, what would that be?
So I'll offer 3 suggestions here. One is very lo-fi. Again, it's thinking about your energy, thinking about the past and the things that you've been extraordinarily successful in. Think about when you get accolades. Think about those career driving projects or moves that you made that drove extraordinary value. And think about what about that task, what about you was the differentiator there? Like, what skills did you use in those moments to drive that kind of success? And how did that feel? So that's one place to start, is very sort of introspective. And then there's sort of the outside in perspective as well. And this is where the 2 suggestions I have is getting a proper 360 done, right? Like inviting the perspectives of others that work very closely with you is oftentimes a great way to identify and see strengths that you don't recognize in yourself. And that's really helpful. The third, and I think these are so powerful, is the right psychometric tests. There are great ones, there are bad ones. I'm not a big fan of, people are really into Myers-Briggs. I think that's kind of like reading your horoscope. It doesn't really say a whole lot, and it's not really predictive in any way. It's not psychometrically sound, and people will debate with me on this. But StrengthsFinder, Clifton Strengths, is a great one. I am a big fan for leaders of using the Hogan personality inventories, because they sort of map you against a set of core skills and competencies. The Hogan's great. It takes a look at who you are and your reputation when you're at your best, where you are when you're dysregulated and what shows up then. And it breaks it down into sort of skills and sub-skills, motivations, and values. So you sort of get this big picture, and you have like a consistent taxonomy that you can use within the context of an organization or within the context of the team. And you can say, like, these are some of my ultimate strengths. These are actually not big strengths for you. They actually show up in these other ways, and these are your strengths. And so it drives towards this really productive conversation around not just how can I utilize my strengths in a way that benefits both myself and this organization. It looks at it from a totality perspective. How can we leverage our strengths, not just to serve ourselves and the organization, but to serve each other, right? If you're weak in these areas, you can turn to me. And if I'm weak in these areas, or I show up this way when I'm dysregulated, you have strengths in these areas, you can pull me back. And so it drives towards that more cohesive, collaborative, team-oriented perspective around how we utilize our strengths in the workplace together.
Those conversations are the most impactful. It can be, even if all it does is increase awareness of how we each work best and how we might appreciate things shifting around a little bit, that's huge. If it goes farther than that to, oh, so this means that you, Rita, might really love doing this thing that I hate doing, then that's even better, because it lets the team self-organize and self-arrange, which is they always have the ability to do. No one outside the team needs to know this happens if the workplace isn't conducive to that. If a certain person still needs to be the one to give the presentation or send the email, that can still happen even if they're not the one who put it together. And teams can do this even if their direct manager isn't on board with this stuff. They can still do it internally and then present a different facade. to the manager if they aren't able to have those productive conversations outward.
Yeah.
The gathering data from other people of when they experience us work well and when they experience us working not as well is so powerful. This is something I encourage the people I work with, my clients, to do as well. And it's great to see this from people at work, people, family, friends, religious circles, all your different groups of people that you interact with, because different sets of people see different parts of us. And by getting all of those different pieces, then we can start to put together who we are at the core and which parts of all these are common threads through all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Self-reflection gives you one side of the picture. It gives you that sort of introspective lens. And personality inventories are largely based on, your own observed behaviors of yourself. But a big part of what drives our success is how others receive us, how others see us, and how we impact them, how we make them feel. It's interesting. There's a statistic around the fact that your boss has more impact and influence on your mental health than oftentimes your partner or even your therapist. And so, understanding the effect that you have on others, like you may choose to lead in certain ways, you may choose to operate in certain ways, but what is the impact of you on other people? When are you supporting them and driving their success? And what of your behaviors is perhaps detrimental? Um, at the end of the day, you don't have to change, but it's data. And data is your friend. Any kind of data that helps you understand yourself better and make more intentional choices, that's great information. And so I highly encourage people to find ways of getting data from their teams and their peers on a regular basis. Now, if you have a high trust, high psychological safety environment, then, those are great conversations to have. But in events where you're not 100% sure you're going to get candor, structuring or asking for a 360 where they can submit or aggregate responses in an anonymized way, that can be a really powerful tool as well.
Do you know of, are there the personality instruments like strength finders? Have those been used, or are there ones that are specifically designed to be taken as I am doing this for each of my people or each of my teammates? So like I'm filling out strength finders for my experience of the other people on my team and then aggregating those together to get that external view through that same lens compared to what my internal view is.
Yeah. Some of the personality inventories absolutely do have that 360 option. Like, for example, I think Leadership Circle Profile has a 360. I think there's a 360 oriented report associated with Hogan. I don't typically use it because I prefer anecdotal 360s. So I'd rather a 360 and getting feedback on people come through qualitative interviews because I think the data that you get is higher quality and you get a lot more context through those as well. But there are absolutely many, many instruments to support 360s. Some organizations use them. Some organizations will just use what's already baked into like a Workday or a Gusto or whatever systems that they're using that allows them to get 360s. Even some engagement survey tools, Glint and Culture Amp, I think both have 360 instruments that you can use to get anonymized versions of data about you or each team member. So there are so many ways to do this. My preference is always anecdotal 360s because of the richness you get out of that data. And I think you can structure your questions in such a way as the outcome is very actionable. And sometimes, if you're not smart about the way in which you design your 360 or you're using the wrong instruments, you're basically walloping the person without giving them anything too actionable that they can work on. And so, to me, that's just hurting someone. That's not helping them. I believe in radical candor. I believe we need more of it in the workplaces. But a big part of radical candor is that kindness piece as well.
What's an example of shifting a 360 question from not so actionable to actionable?
Yeah. So, one of the things I love to do, assuming the culture is right for it, is I will ask individuals this, and then I'll do it in a group environment, right? So I'll bring the team together and I'll ask some of these questions. But one of my favorite framings is what becomes possible if. So for you as an individual, you shared that these are some of the challenges you have with your boss. What becomes possible if these challenges or these changes are made and these things that you're asking for happen to happen? Like what changes for you personally? And when you use possibility language, when you start from that strengths-based view of what becomes possible for you, the answers you get are extraordinary, the richness of the answers you get. And so when you come back to ultimately what you're doing is bringing data to an individual, and then they have to affect their own choices on whether or not they're going to work on these things or not. You can't force anyone to change, but it gives them a greater picture of what becomes possible for each individual. And when you can ask that question in a team context, what becomes possible for the team? What more the team can achieve? How different the culture will be if you make these changes? What is the future your team wants for themselves? And that sort of possibility language is a massive motivator to support your desire to want to change and do things for the betterment of others.
I love that phrasing. It shifts the whole thought process from what the problem is to not even what the or a solution is, to orders of magnitude past that of what the intended outcome will be from making those shifts and finding those solutions.
Exactly.
What's the business value of doing all this squishy people, interpersonal, interreflective work?
Yeah, I mean, there's an extraordinary amount of business value. I don't know if I've gone a day on LinkedIn without seeing some sort of article on quiet cracking. So, workplaces right now are on the struggle bus. They're on the struggle bus. Cultures are being challenged in a very big way. Employee populations are getting more and more disengaged. Um, People spend an extraordinary amount of their time in the workplace, right? They spend about a third of their lives or more working. And so you want that time to be effective. You want their time working for you to be productive. And for that to happen, for that to drive business value, they need to be engaged. They need to be happy. They need to feel like they're growing. This isn't stuff that I'm making up. It comes down to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? We have a need for significance. We have a need to feel like we have a purpose. And so, what you're trying to give them is that workplace where they feel like they're growing, they're learning, they're doing some of their best work, they're getting recognized for that work, they're feeling that level of significance and contribution and purpose. So, the ROI for the business is you have an engaged workforce. They're doing the best work they possibly can in service of your goals and your mission. Um, and you're going to have greater retention of your top talent. You're going to have to spend a lot less even on like mental health costs and insurance premiums. Like happier employees are typically healthier employees. They're healthier employees. We have the data. We know we have the technology. We can measure it. We know that we want a healthy workforce. And so these are some of the contributing factors towards driving that. There is massive ROI here for businesses. Some of it feels soft and squishy, but at the end of the day, turnover has real costs. Leadership turnover is uniquely expensive because not only are you seeing leaders walk out the door, potentially great leaders walk out the door, hiring in new leaders, the growth curve of getting them up to speed and getting them to a place of productivity, that can take 90 plus days, sometimes up to 6 months, depending on the leader, depending on the seniority, depending on the position. So you've got sort of an opportunity cost there as well. Um, and then you have all of these other like ancillary bits and pieces. So the ROI is there.
It is. I heard the everybody knows we spend 1/3 of our time at work. I saw recently that was calculated out over a typical career. That is 90,000. That's 90,000 hours, which is 9 times the now cliche 10,000 hours to hit mastery. Why are we not 9 times mastery at doing our job? It's crazy that we spend that much hour and not be trying to become great at doing the job and everything it takes to really do that well.
Yeah, I mean, our jobs evolve and change. right? The one thing we don't have is stagnation. You don't join an entry level company and do that entry level job for 10,000 hours. You might do it for, I don't know, like a year, maybe two, and then you're moved up to, if you're familiar, I think it's the Peter principle, where you're always promoted to the next level of incompetence. So you're constantly getting promoted up and moving up and taking in new things, new work. The world around you is constantly shifting. So the nature of jobs based on external factors, the marketplace, COVID, market factors, all of this other stuff, competition, is changing the nature of your job. And so our jobs are in constant flux. So it's rare that we're going to be able to find the one thing that we get up to 10,000 hours of in isolation. That's challenging. It's not impossible. But that's half of the joy as well, is we move on to more complex work. And as we move on to more complex work and we can handle more complexity as adults, we're developing more. There's vertical development theory. I'm a big fan of Bill Torbert and Jennifer Garvey Berger, if this is something you want to nerd out on. But they both sort of talk about how, as we grow older and as we take in more, as we develop as adults and move on to the next stages of our development, we can handle more complexity. And by handling more complexity, we move up on that vertical development lens too. So as people, we're developing and we're continuing to grow. And that's why, we don't hit the 10,000 hours super quickly. We don't hit it super early. It takes time.
That's true when we see ourselves as I'm writing code or I'm answering the phones or whatever that entry level work is, and then the next level and the next level. What I'm coming to believe more and more is that's never the job we're really there to do. That's never the job that our hiring manager, our team wants us to do. Maybe every job, our core job there really is to solve problems. And if we understand what we're doing in that lens, combined with our unique way to do that, given our unique combination of strengths, then that gives us a more stable, maybe, I won't say fully stable because our understanding of ourselves is always shifting. A stronger focus on what to spend that 10,000, 90,000 hours of intentional practice on. It's not, I'm writing in this programming language today and this one tomorrow, now AI comes and I'm telling it how to program. It's how am I using the tools that I have in my unique way to solve the problems that my business is asking me to do.
Yeah. And you have to want to solve those problems.
And you have to want to solve those problems. And there's almost always a way to engage the things that you love into those problems, at least enough to make it interesting, enough to spend some time doing it, enough to get done and move on to something more interesting. And the more we understand how to explain that, the more we can talk with our teams and our management structure to say, this is what I love doing, this is where I work really well, this is the best way to invest me, and the more likely we'll get to focus on what does light us up.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are the outcomes you typically see as you help your clients move through this understanding, integrate this into the way that they do, and embed these cultures into their teams and workplaces?
Yeah, so some of the best outcomes are, increased collaboration and improved collaboration with your peers, improving the relationship with your boss, significantly improving the relationship with your team members, and improving the efficacy of your team in terms of whatever they're doing. I would say the greatest gift, though, is a greater sense of fulfillment, personal and professional fulfillment. And for me, the most important one is cognitive ease, right? Like neurodivergent leaders or anyone in a leadership position, you found a way to be successful, but for neurodivergent leaders, it comes at that significant cost, and that cost is deeply personal. And so for me, hearing a client come to a session where they're sort of certainly still listing out their problems, and I'm going to help them try to talk to it, but they're talking themselves through it. They've built their own capacity to be able to navigate the workplace and its challenges using their strengths in a very active way. They come home, they're not exhausted every night. Like, you're going to have great days and bad days at work no matter what, but they're not living in that constant state of, I feel so stretched and so thin and so depleted and so exhausted, that I'm barely functioning. I'm barely taking care of themselves. They are taking themselves. They're navigating their self-care beautifully. They're sleeping at night. And by doing all of this, they're also improving their personal relationships, the most important relationships in their life. So it's this really beautiful, holistic shift that I see in my clients when they walk through this process. It takes time, it doesn't happen overnight, but even 6 months of working through these activities and talking through with any sort of trained coach who knows how to work with neurodivergent leaders can drive towards these extraordinary outcomes for you. Look for the right coach, but the possibilities are endless. And like I said, I love possibility language. So I would think about it from that lens of what becomes possible if and when you have that cognitive ease, when these things become true for you.
And a wonderful side effect is even if we just do this work ourselves, we are bringing that to everyone else so that their cognitive ease and all the other goodness goes up. And then that goes up for everyone that they interact with. And just by working on ourselves, we're making the whole world a little better.
Amen.
How do you help people find their way through all the change, uncertainty, and overwhelm that seems to be pretty much all of life these days?
Yeah. So again, I'm going to talk about this from the lens of, the neurodivergent leaders of the world, because that tends to be where I'm focused on. Um, One of the biggest challenges we face when we're taking a look at the uncertainty and the complexity and all the challenge that's happening in the world is we feel a lack of choice. And so, one of the things I really work on with my clients is building what I call choice architecture. So there's always choices. There's always choices. No matter what scenario you find yourself, you can choose who you choose to be. You can choose how you choose to respond. You can choose the information you choose to take in, what you do with that information, whether you act, whether you don't act. And just the action of taking a minute and building out your choice architecture using your values and your principles. So, this is a values and motivations and principle based system where we work together, and anytime these things come to you, you can actually pause. It's like you're on the dance floor and immediately you're stepping out of the dance floor, you're going onto the balcony and you're watching yourself and you're saying, I can take all of these steps. I can do the merengue, I can do the tango. I have the choices here in front of me. I'm going to take an intentional moment and look through all of those choices and say, based on who I choose to be and my values and my principles, what is the action that's going to be most consistent with what I need today? And so it puts choice back in your hands. It puts control back in your hands during these moments that seem completely uncontrollable. And it makes it easier for you to navigate that with some element of cognitive ease. That's a really important part, particularly if you're a neurodivergent leader.
Yes, so often it seems like we have no choice, and we always have choice, as you say. No one can tell us how to breathe. No one can tell us what we're thinking inside. We can always shift that, even if we have to pretend to be shifting something else to feel safe. We still have control inside.
Yeah, absolutely.
Doing this in the moment is the height of mastery. Well, doing it in the height of moment consistently is the height of growth. How do you help your people work through that? 6 hours later, I realize something happened, and now I go back and can think through what my choices were and reimagine how that could have been. Now it's 3 hours. Now it's an hour. Now it's 30 minutes. Now it's 3 minutes later. Now it's 3 seconds later. Now I'm doing it in the moment. That can be so frustrating, taking such a long time to be able to do this in the moment, time after time.
Listen, I think one of the biggest lies we tell ourselves is urgency and importance are the same thing. Not everything that's important is urgent. And so, a big part of the choice architecture is asking yourself, is this something I have to make a decision on right now? And if I say yes to that, why? Let's paint that out. Let's write that out for ourselves in our brain and codify it and make sure the story that we're telling ourselves that this is urgent is actually true. And if it is true, then yes, you have to make a quick decision, but it doesn't mean you can't pause for 1 minute and just say, hey, what is the data that I have? Mindfulness is a very big part of my practice. It's something that I encourage all of my clients to develop, and it's something that we work on together. I encourage having a 1 minute meditation practice or a 2 minute meditation practice, something quick and dirty that can center your brain and your body in a moment so that you can calm your nervous system and take data in and process it as data, ask the right questions, and make decisions. There are going to be moments in our lives where we have to make very swift decisions, but we can usually take at least a few seconds to do some deep breathing, to clear our mind, and to come into focus. Now, if you are a neurosurgeon and you have to, you're in the middle of a procedure, you may have less time than that. But the way neurosurgeons are trained is so that their choice architecture and their training is so ingrained in their brain that they know where there's room for discussion and room for taking the time and when there isn't. And they know what they're working with. There are high risk jobs where you don't have as much time, but you can always take 30 seconds typically.
Yes, and as I was listening to you, I realized that the way I framed my question assumes that always being in the moment is the goal, and it's not necessarily the goal. As you said, it doesn't urgent isn't always is most things are not urgent. So it doesn't matter if we're always realizing 6 hours later, even the reflection then and choosing to do some understanding, recognizing what we could have done different then will help us be a little more that way the next time.
Yeah, absolutely.
For Neurodivergent and everyone else who has resonated with what we've talked about today and would like to connect with you to learn more, what's the best way for them to meet up?
Head to my website. It's www.iksana.com. That's IKSANA.com. Iksana is Sanskrit to which means to look deeply and see, and to look after and care. So that's an easy way to remember it if you'd like. You can also find me on LinkedIn or reach out to me at rita@iksana.com.
And Instagram is coming up at Iksana, I imagine.
Yeah, Instagram will be coming up. We're recording some nice little snippet videos, just easy things for people to remember or to help them on a day-to-day basis, because that's the ultimate goal, right? Any small thing that we can do to help each other just lead better, lead more effectively, and lead with ease and fulfillment, that's the goal.
100%. And you have a nice little bonus offer for people who would like to check out working with you.
Yeah, absolutely. If you are interested in pursuing a coaching relationship and you're a fit, mention uncommon leadership in your discovery call request, and you'll get 20% off of any one-on-one coaching packages. We are also going to be starting to offer group coaching cohorts again, and we're just starting to put together a cohort for for January 2026. So that'll be mid-January 2026 is when that launches. And if you mention uncommon leadership, you get 10% off of those.
That's great. Thank you so much. What would you like to leave our audience with today, Rita?
Know that it can be easier. It can always be easier. Being an extraordinary leader can come with ease. If happiness sits at the intersection of peacefulness and productivity, know that if you're listening to this, you're probably pretty darn good at being productive. Maybe now start focusing on what it means to be peace.
I love that. Thank you, Rita, for a wonderful conversation today.
Thank you. This has been wonderful. I really appreciate you having me on.
It has been a blessing. And thank you, audience, for joining us. That has been a blessing as well. Rita and I would love to know what helps you bring peace into your crazy life. Thanks, and have a great day.